Hi guys, it's Megan here, faithful fibromyalgia warrior, also known in some circles as healing foods coach. I hope you guys are doing well. It is Sunday, the 26th of May. It's a holiday here, a holiday weekend here in the UK. So of course it is pouring rain out. It's about 9:30 in the morning. So I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to just touch on a topic if I could. I'll try to keep it to the point and brief. But just thinking today about histamines, inflammatory responses to certain foods, plants, no plants, and everything in between. So, one of the things I've long since come to understand, it's not a brand new thing, it's something I've known for some time, is of course we are all completely, oh, there's my dog, there's Birdie. We are all very different. We are all created differently. We are all made differently. And so what we eat is different. And I have no doubt there must be people out in this world who eat more plants than they do animals. And they may in fact be thriving. I don't have all the answers. I just know when I talk about going plant-free, eating an animal-based diet, this is what has worked so well for me. And yes, there are many others in this carnivore space who have had the same results. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm saying I've had such incredible healing and such freedom from my previous health issues and physical challenges that I would simply urge, if you have tried going the plant route, if you have tried all the medications, all the potential herbal remedies, if you've tried all the different diets and it still isn't working, then you may want to consider trying going animal-based and eating a carnivore diet. Obviously, you do what you want. It's your choice. It's your free will. You eat what you feel best at. I'm simply want to share that, look, this is what helped me have amazing, incredible, dramatic healing. And if you've tried everything else and you find it isn't working or it's not helping, this may possibly do it for you. Okay, got to get that little proviso out of the way. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. Yes, I'm certified as a nutrition coach, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a GP or any sort of medical practitioner from that point of view. So I cannot diagnose you, and nor would I ever tell you to not seek proper medical advice. Okay, please do that, because I do believe God created the doctors on this earth. He gave them the intelligence to discover medical conditions and different ways of potentially treating them. I'm just wanting to point out that our diet also plays a part, that we may very well need to take certain medications, and we may need those medications for life. We may, if we're dealing with significant mental health issues such as schizophrenia, being bipolar, even some people with the extreme forms of ADHD, or like crippling significant anxiety or depression, or suffering borderline personality disorders. There are incredible advances in science and medications that were created by intelligent people who God also made to come up with these solutions. I'm simply saying that may not be the only thing that might help. That in addition to medications and medical interventions, that helping by taking a good, healthy approach to our own nutrition can also play a part. All right, that's that bit out of the way. So I was thinking about different things that can help us or hurt us, okay, food-wise. And I will always tell you how I used to eat all the plants, all the vegetables, all the nuts, the seeds, the pulses, the grains, the fruits, all of it, because that's what we're told to eat. And just as it may help some people, it also hurts a lot of others. For example, as someone who has suffered with irritable bowel syndrome, chronic constipation, bloating, gas, horrible abdominal pain, just from that. Never mind the chronic pain that came through my fibromyalgia. Never mind the fact that I had hypothyroidism, so my thyroid didn't function, which means my metabolism was really slow, which means my digestive process was slow, and it all kind of adds up. Eating all that plant material, having all that fiber stay in my intestinal tract and ferment did not help me in any way, okay? And so for me, the thing that helped me get the inflammation down and out, the thing that helped me reduce and even remove most of my histamine responses for me was getting all of the plant material out of my diet. No vegetables, no fruit, no seeds, legumes, pulses, grains, none of it. Because my body, mine, I can only speak to myself, my body cannot process any of that effectively. None of it. Within a minute or two of eating anything that is a plant material, I get gas, bloating, constipation. I feel nauseous. I have headaches. My joints start to hurt. I start to develop an itchy feeling on my skin. It is bad. Okay, this is me having an inflammatory response to the histamines that come from when I was eating plants. That's me. There, no doubt, are people in the world who consume some plant material or even lots of plant material and perhaps right now are not even feeling it. And to them, I say, you are lucky. You are lucky if you are not affected by the food you eat. Now, I think many people know there are certain things that I think we can agree are definitely inflammatory sources, and that is the refined added sugar in processed foods and the highly processed and especially hydrogenated seed oils that go into packaging different food products and junk foods. This has been shown to cause inflammation in the body, without a doubt. Okay. But for me, I was having that response as well from all the fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, and other plant materials that I was eating. Some people may not have that kind of a response. I did. So when I got rid of that and I went strictly to animal meats and or animal products like eggs, butter, and some dairy, I started to see improvement. Now, it's easy to think that no animal product has any sort of an inflammatory response in people, and that's not actually true. It's nowhere near what you would get, say, from plants. And I would say that if there's an inflammatory response or a histamine reaction to animal products, it's because they have been processed in some way. So, if I may, if you'll indulge me, what I'm talking about is, for example, when we eat prepared meats, processed meats, and that can either be meats that get turned into charcuterie or deli meats, so salamis and pepperonis and certain sausages, anything like that goes through additional process. You don't just kill the animal and here's the meat, right? So when you're making sausages, bacon, what else was I going to say? So sausages, bacon, things like pepperoni sticks, salami, pepperoni for pizza, anything like that that is cured in some way, so you don't have to then cook it when you get it home, goes through additional processes. And depending on the seasonings, the ingredients, and the curing process, different things are left in the meat, which can cause a histamine reaction and cause inflammation in the body, which is why I cannot eat things like pepperoni or salami. I cannot eat processed hams. So The Parma hams I can't have because of how they're treated during the processing and the curing. Causes me to have it causes me to have a histamine reaction, which causes inflammation. So if I eat deli meats, or I eat meats that are what we would call part of a charcuterie, I very quickly feel aches and pains in my wrists, in my joints. My rosacea flares up, and I actually get a bit of gas. I actually have a histamine reaction, and I develop inflammation as a response. So while the majority of people on this planet can eat deli meats with no issue, some of us do actually have a high sensitivity to deli meats. Same with sausages, because it's not just pork, it's pork with whatever stuffing, with whatever additives and seasonings they add when they make the sausages. So for me, I can have some sausages, like if they're plain, if there's no pepper, there's no seasoning, they have to be gluten-free, and I can only have a few at a time. If I have more than that, causes constipation, bloating, and a bit of gas. So those can potentially cause histamine reaction and inflammation. And it is possible for some types of red meat to cause that reaction in some people. If our immune systems are so badly under attack, if we are dealing with an autoimmune condition or multiple autoimmune conditions like hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, fibromyalgia, etc., then we have less and less ability to eat those foods without issue. So it is possible to eat ground beef, especially if it's nice and fatty, which is what I eat, the 20% fat ground beef, no problem. But ask me to eat a nice piece of sirloin steak, which is leaner, but may have definitely gone through an aging process, which requires some additional seasonings for that aging process. I'm reacting not to the red meat, I'm reacting to whatever was used to create that aging process of that meat. So it can be a bit tricky knowing what to buy and what not to buy. And most meats, at least that I've seen at the grocery store, are aged. Most of the steaks are aged before they're put out on the shelves to be sold. And maybe that's to help the steak last a bit longer in the fridge. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's just a taste thing. I don't know. But I know that when we get our meats from the butcher, they're not aged. The meat is cut and prepared and we just get it. It's not aged at that point. So if I'm eating steak from the butcher, I don't have an issue. If I get it from the grocery store, it's always aged. And so it just is a little, and it's not a huge difference, but there's just a slight difference in how well I can digest it. And that's why. The same thing goes, say, for things like pork, like sauce. So I touched on sausages, but also things like seasoned pork ribs. So you might buy some ribs from the grocery store, like Sainsbury's here. They do seasoned pork ribs. And I get them for my son and my husband sometimes. So the ribs themselves, if they were fresh from the butcher's, unseasoned, not a problem. There's no aging, there's no processing done. But when they pre-season them, there's spices and other things that they're sort of marinating in the bag before you take it home. So even if you don't add the extra barbecue sauce, you have pork that has been pre-seasoned. And the seasoning, for someone like me, for example, who is hypersensitive, especially because of the IBS, any sort of seasoning on the meat causes a histamine reaction and inflammation. So I can't eat those ribs. Even if it smells amazing, I personally can't eat it. A lot of people can, and it doesn't bother them. And so that's why, I would say if you're thinking of starting carnivore, start with beef, butter, bacon, eggs. Maybe throw in sausages, maybe some ribs, some lamb. Some people have a hard time with fish and seafood. And again, it is probably part of it could be if there's higher levels of mercury, because that's not good for the body, right? You could be reacting to potentially the metals in that fish. I don't eat fish because I don't like it. I hate the taste. It's disgusting to me. I don't at all. I don't like it at all. And I love lobster. And I don't know if it's simply because of what that lobster may have eaten while it was alive that's then left, building it, somehow digested into its body. I don't know. I love lobster, but when I eat it, I do find I get a bit of a slight histamine reaction. Causes my rosacea to flare up, and my joints get a bit sore. So I don't eat it anymore. I do love the taste, but I don't eat it. And just to say that, yes, it is possible to have a histamine response to animal-based sources of fat and protein. But I would point out that that is more likely going to be a result of any additional preparation and curing that's involved, and therefore seasoning. But don't let that stop you from trying to eat carnivore. Okay, so eggs are another one. Most people can have eggs, not an issue. Maybe they get a bit gassy, but otherwise not a problem. I have a lactose intolerance, and for some reason, I'm one of those people that egg whites can cause a similar response. So if I keep my whole eggs to just the morning, I'm all right. And then in the evening, I generally just eat ground beef with egg yolks. So you might want to try that. You might just want to try having the yolks and not the whole egg. That might help. But I didn't want to make it seem as though meat never causes any kind of an inflammatory response in people, or that there can never be a histamine response. And if people are saying that it causes them a reaction, that they're making it up. No, of course it can. I can, for example, I like a little bit of lamb, just a bit. It's very rich. It's very filling, which is great. But I digest beef, personally, I digest beef a whole lot better. If lamb comes in lamb mince, like beef mince or ground lamb versus ground beef, I can mix the two together and have no issues. But when lamb comes heavier in the form of a steak, I find it harder to digest. And actually, that goes the same for me with red meat, with beef, with cow meat, right? I do great with fattier ground beef, but steak is a leaner cut and it is harder for me to digest. That's just how my body is. I'm not going to stop eating it, just that certain cuts are harder to digest and break down than others, especially if there's less fat. I do better with higher fat, leaner protein, or less protein, sorry. Not leaner protein, less protein, more fat. That's what works for me. Seems to be keeping my hormones in balance and in check, and just overall keeping my thyroid chugging along. So I felt like I needed to make this video to say that, look, it is actually possible for some people to have a histamine response to animal products. Now, I would venture to say it's going to be nowhere near how they might respond to plant products. And that's simply because the plant's defense mechanism is their toxins. That's how they defend themselves, by trying to make themselves as unedible as possible so that they can keep growing and we don't kill them, right? They have no other defensive mechanism. So that makes sense. Plants by nature have far more histamine responses from plants is more common and more significant than what might come from animals. However, that does not mean that you'll never have a histamine response to an animal product. And to act as if that's the case seems to me a little bit foolish and ignorant, even, because it can happen. I don't do well with seafood. Fish makes me feel nauseous. I will eat things like chicken breasts. When I did jury duty service, I bought a whole bunch of pre-cooked chicken breasts. I just chopped them up into little bits, put them in a container, and that's what I had for lunch when I was at the courthouse. When we weren't able to go out, that's what I took to eat. Is it my preferred choice of protein? No, because it's quite lean and it often made me feel hungrier. But I needed something quick that was easy to transport, that could be cold or hot, and chicken breast filled the bill. Of my own free choices, it would be ground beef, egg yolks, maybe a bit of sausage. And again, for me, if I have sausage with too much seasoning or added flavors or spices, it causes an almost instant reaction. My joints hurt, my face gets very red and blotchy, and it makes me gassy. So therefore, histamine response because of what's added into it. Similar to bacon from the butchers, not a problem. Bacon from the store that's been had syrup or sugar added or other things factored in the curing process always causes a reaction in me. As much as I love the taste, I'm not willing to endure the consequences. And I think partly the reason why my rosacea was so horrible when I was in New York City, in the hotel, they had this great breakfast. We had breakfast included with our stay. And every morning you go down and they had all this crispy bacon. However, it clearly wasn't fresh from the butchers. It was fresh, obviously. They bought it from whatever local grocery store, Whole Foods or someplace. And it was all fried up. But it was very thin, had very little flavor and salt. And I could tell that in the curing process, they probably added a lot of other chemicals because as a hotel, they want to get stuff that's as inexpensive as possible. So was this like bacon that had gone bad? No. Was it likely, did it taste like it maybe was full of additives and things? Yes. And that is most likely a big reason as to why I had such the reaction that I did. Those things are all factors. So not to say you can't try it. Obviously, guys, you won't know if you're that sensitive unless you try, right? It's a fun game called trial and error. And it took me a while to work out that I did really well with bacon fresh from the butchers without any additives, okay? No issues with that bacon. But the bacon from the store caused a reaction. Even if it was minor, it caused a response. And so you have to kind of play around a little bit, figure out what makes you feel great, what doesn't make you feel great. And again, there are people out in this planet, in this world, on this planet, who can seemingly tolerate eating plants, be it vegetables or fruit or nuts and seeds and other things. And if you feel great and you're content and happy with where you're at with your health and your life, who am I to say don't do it? That's your choice. Obviously, I'm not here to tell you don't eat that. I would say if you've tried that route and you're not getting the results you hope for, and you're not feeling as great as you would like to, or in fact you're feeling so bad and nothing else seems to work, give this a try. You may be pleasantly surprised by some of the results you have. In fact, you may find that this does wonders for you. Who knows, right? It's up to you. Obviously, it's up to you guys. You guys will eat what you choose to eat. I just know for me that when I got rid of all the plants from my diet and I figured out which of the animal meats I do best on and that make me feel the best and that do not cause a histamine reaction, or very, very, very minimal, i.e. maybe one cappuccino a couple times a week. Otherwise, no dairy. Keeping cheese out as much as absolutely possible. You know, that sort of thing. Minimal amounts of sausages. I'm going through a phase at the moment where I was kind of, yes, I liked bacon. Now I'm kind of like, I don't really feel like making bacon. If it's there, I'll have it, but it's not what I crave. Right? So it's eating the things I crave. Super buttery scrambled eggs in the morning, just eggs scrambled, no milk, lots of butter. Yummy. Lunch might be eggs again, might be a sausage, might be nothing if I'm not that hungry. Dinner is almost always ground beef with egg yolks. That's dinner, and maybe a bit of butter. And so I'm going through figuring out all the things that I enjoy, that I feel nourished, that I know are good for me, that I feel great eating, that are not causing any kind of achiness or histamine reaction, which then results in an inflammatory response. These are the things. If you can't do eggs, that's okay. You don't have to. It's just an option. If you discover that, unfortunately, like me, you have to be really, really careful what kind of bacon you have and not have that much of it because of how you react to it. Or perhaps you cannot have sausages very often or at all, depending on where you get them from and what they're made with. Those are things you'll figure out for yourself. These are just some ideas. But it is possible to have a histamine response to animal products. Again, don't worry. I don't want you to panic and freak out and think, well, I can't do the plants because they caused issues. Now I can't do meat. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we all have different levels of histamine response to the things we eat. And when it comes to animal products, from what I've noticed, generally speaking, it's not the meat of that animal that's the issue. It's how that meat was then prepared after. Any additional seasonings, curing, aging, those all play factors. And if you want any more tips or suggestions, especially if you live in the beautiful US of A, I highly suggest that you check out Rebecca Heichman, because she had major histamine reactions to when she first tried going carnivore when she was eating steaks, because she realized later she was having a reaction to the fact that the meat was cured. And I think she recommends two places, Billy Doe Meats and North Star Bison. And that's where she gets her steaks and other things from, whether it's lamb or bison. So because she was having issues with beef from as in cow meat. So if you're in the States, I'm not exactly sure where they're located. Again, if you check out her channel, all that stuff is there. And plus, she's really cool. So she's definitely worth watching. But she may have some great suggestions for you, which will be applicable if you live in the States. If you live here in the UK or Canada, the only thing I could suggest is, and it might be easier to find a local butcher, but what I have found is where we get our stuff from, which is Mann's Family Butchers, they're here in Ipswich, is they don't cure their meats. They cure their bacon with very minimal ingredients, which is why I don't seem to have an issue with theirs. And their meats are not aged. And maybe that's just a US, I don't know. But when it goes to Sainsbury's or Tesco, the steaks are all aged, usually 21 days or 28 days. I don't believe they age their steaks because I don't seem to have an issue with eating their steaks. But that's just one place. I think it's easier over here to perhaps find beef that has not been aged. And I think that's just if you're getting it in steak format. When you're getting it as minced beef or stewing beef, it isn't aged anyways. That's my understanding. I might be wrong. You probably want to do that. Look into that for yourselves. So, you'll find out for yourself quickly whether you have a histamine response and therefore whether your body is reacting with inflammation. And I would put to you, one of the easiest ways to tell is if you've eaten something and within minutes, if you start to feel any sort of achiness, if you feel like you're starting to bloat, if you feel like you suddenly have gas, if you feel like you might either have to go to the toilet or you're starting to feel constipated fairly quickly after eating something, those are kind of clear signs that you're in fact having a histamine response, and you are showing signs of inflammation if that happens that quickly. But everyone has to do their own experiment, right, as far as what works for them. And maybe your response is relatively minor, but you're willing to put up with it because you enjoy a certain food. Cool. Seriously, if it doesn't bother you that much and you're willing to put up with it, like, okay, maybe you're a little bit sensitive to the ingredients used when curing bacon, but you love bacon and your response is minor, so you're willing to just go with it. I say go for it. Why not? We may never completely eliminate every single potential item that causes a histamine reaction and therefore inflammation in our bodies. That I don't know if that's even realistically possible. So, obviously you have to make the decision of what are you willing to accept as a reaction, as a response, as a response to what you're eating versus your enjoyment of that food. And of course, I can't tell you. I can't make that decision for you. That's for you to decide. For me, for example, I'm willing to put up with a little bit of bloating and gas to enjoy a really, really nicely well-made cappuccino a few times a week. That's what I'm willing to put up with. Am I willing to suffer the consequences of eating a whole bunch of cheese and drinking milk every day? No, but I'm willing to accept it in a cappuccino a few times a week. That's me. So, I feel like it's important we arm ourselves with as much information as we possibly can. That way we make the best decision for who we are and what we want out of life. So again, if you want to keep eating fruits and vegetables and all the plants, that's your choice. I'm not here to be the food dictator. That's not why I do this. That's not why I share my story. That's not why I make these videos. And if that's what you want to do, obviously, I hope good health and best to you, truly. I've just wanted to say that I found amazing improvement in my overall life and health when I got those things out of my diet personally. And God has allowed me to heal through the process. And if you've already tried everything else and you feel like there's nothing else you can possibly do, I would then suggest maybe try going carnivore, easing into it. Start low carb, work your way up to keto, and then eventually carnivore, and you may find incredible changes. That is all. My hope is that if you've tried everything else and you're frustrated and you feel like nothing else has worked, why not give carnivore a try? You never know. Could be the game changer. Guys, that's it for me for today. I hope this video is helpful. I hope you're encouraged. I hope it has given you some good information, some good food for thought. And if you have, obviously, comments or questions, please leave them at the end of the video. You can find me at healingfoodscoach.com if you are interested in any one-to-one support at all. I'm there, happy to help, happy to try to answer your questions. If I don't know, I will try to point you in the direction of somebody who does know as far as scientific evidence and things like that. But thank you so much for watching to the end. And you guys are amazing. You guys are always so supportive, and that means everything to me. So thank you for that. And if you want to know more, please get in touch. Otherwise, guys, have yourselves a great Sunday, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.